war between the longing domain, the hunger domain, and the mirror domain was over. The longing domain, which had seemed indomitable once, fell in just a few months, and now, only two warring factions remained. So a new war was now unraveling under the patchwork sky of the dream realm. At the time Cassie and Rain arrived at the Ebony Island, Mordred was steadily pushing the forces of humanity back on all fronts. All the northern expanse of the dream realm, excluding only Ravenheart, already belonged to him. His seemingly endless vessels were moving like an unstoppable wave down the River of Tears, and in the east, the Black Mountains were poised to fall soon. It seemed like the King of Nothing was going to wash over the world like a tide, leaving nothing but death and desolation in his wake, leaving nothing but himself to rule the empty, devastated world. But reality was different. As soon as the last bastions of the longing domain, including the 4 great citadels, fell into the hands of the Dreamspawn, his rule over humanity was solidified. All of mankind now belonged to him, submitted to him, and worshipped him as their savior. Of course, that was not because everyone truly believed in Asterion. Instead, it was because everyone had been infected by the idea of him, enthralled by him, and no one could escape his frightening powers. But it was all the same, as far as the war against the King of Nothing was concerned. With all of humanity united in their eerie obedience to the Dreamspawn, the nature of the war changed. There was no internal conflict among the humans anymore, and they were guided by the terrible will of the eldest and most experienced of the Supremes. So their unity and military cohesion increased by leaps and bounds, going far beyond what was humanly possible. And since Asterion ruled the most powerful domain in existence now, having grown far more powerful than any other Supreme as a result, he did not feel the need to shy away from the battlefield anymore. On the contrary, he led his thralls into battles quite often, as if taunting the King of Nothing to bring his most powerful vessels and face him. But of course, there was no difference between those vessels that were powerful and those that were weak. In the end, they were all Mordred, and so, Asterion could assault Mordred's mind every time he found himself close to any vessel. He could slowly poison Mordred's mind from any distance as well, but being face-to-face allowed the Dreamspawn to unleash the full extent of his insidious aspect upon the King of Nothing. It wasn't easy to infect the mind of a Supreme, especially the mind of Mordred, who had the capacity to control millions of vessels without going mad, or at least more mad than he already was. His mind was vast and eerily alien, but then again, Asterion was not entirely human either. Just like rivers cut rock, his insidious powers slowly chipped away at the King of Nothing, poisoning his mind drop by drop. That should have destroyed Mordred, eventually, but even in the short term, Asterion's influence was supposed to diminish his ability to fight against the hunger domain effectively. That did not happen, though. It did not happen for one simple reason, because of Lady Kasha, Song of the Fallen. She, who was now considered a traitor of humanity by those who had fallen under the Dreamspawn's hex, seemed to be the only reason why Mordred could resist the powers of Lord Asterion so persistently. So people blamed Song of the Fallen for every person who died in the war against the Mirror Domain, and for every soul that was destroyed to give its sinister ruler a new vessel. Despite the fact that the King of Nothing had found himself a witch to protect himself from the insidious power of the Dreamspawn, the tides of war still changed against him. In the west, the warriors of humanity managed to build an effective blockade on the River of Tears. Of course, Mordred could bypass it by using the surface of the river itself as an exit of the Mirror Gate, but in doing so, he would be committing a large contingent of his forces to a battle behind enemy lines. And with the Song Sisters leading a counteroffensive from Ravenheart, pushing eastward toward Godgrave, he had no choice but to conserve his vessels and pull them back to the Moon River Plains. In the east, his advance across the Black Mountains slowed down at first, and then came to a halt. That was where the fighting was the most fearsome, and that was where the Dreamspawn appeared in the flesh most often. Mordred's conquest had come against the wall he couldn't overcome. For a while, the two domains were at a stalemate, fighting fierce battles across the jagged peaks of the Black Mountains. And then humanity managed to push the King of Nothing back. He lost control over a single peak at first, then of a few more. And then, the Black Mountains campaign saw a complete reversal. The forces of humanity had been desperately clinging to the snowy slopes before, being chased further and further south almost every day. But now it was the other way around, and it was the vessels of the King of Nothing who lost ground each day. Mordred was being pushed north. He was losing vessels faster than he could procure new ones in Godgrave, the Glass Hell, and across the battlefronts of the war against humanity. And while he could face Asterion in battle and wound him, or even destroy his body, the Dreamspawn could not really be destroyed, not unless the idea of him was erased from existence. So, no matter how many wounds he received, how severely his body was bruised and mangled, he always returned to how he was before, smiling as his golden eyes shone with amusement. The fierce fighting went on for weeks, reshaping the very terrain of the Dream Realm. In the Black Mountains, countless peaks had collapsed, burying the deep gorges with rock. New mountain passes were created, and the old ones were erased from existence. The veil of snow covering the tallest mountains was incinerated, and the ancient glaciers melted under intense heat. The rivers running from the vast mountain chain overflowed, drowning swathes of land on the plains below. New lakes were created, while the old ones grew still and shallow. The nightmare creatures who dwelled in the wilderness found their lairs being disturbed or destroyed entirely, so a widespread migration began, threatening the citadel cities all the way down to Bastion. In the west, the destruction was more widespread due to the scale of the natural forces involved in the calamity. The fearsome battles on the River of Tears caused it to change course, forming a new riverbed as several sections of the old one were cut off from the current. The cataclysm caused by the change of the Great River was devastating beyond description. A titanic, obliterating flood swallowed entire plains, washed away vast forests and drowned flourishing valleys, destroying countless ecosystems completely. Before the new riverbed stabilized, entire regions of the Dream Realm found themselves underwater, their landscape changed forever. In the end, the new riverbed was formed, flowing almost in a straight line for long stretches on its way to the Storm Sea. At the same time, several colossal oxbow lakes appeared in places where its currents used to twist and turn. The sections of the dried riverbed revealed secrets and horrors that no one could even imagine before, but at the moment, no one had time to pay them any attention, either, too busy either surviving or fighting the war. And after these weeks of vicious fighting, and all the devastation the new domain war visited upon the Dream Realm, the King of Nothing was not locked in a stalemate against the Dreamspawn anymore. He was retreating. The combined forces of humanity, nurtured to their current daunting strength by changing star of the immortal flame and led by the Dreamspawn, had turned out too numerous and too powerful for his young domain to contend against. So, in an attempt to consolidate his forces and prevent too many vessels from being destroyed while they were spread thin, Mordred was forced to narrow the scope of what he was trying to hold on to. He abandoned the basin of the River of Tears first, then reluctantly retreated from the Black Mountains. The Moonriver Plains fell into the hands of humanity once again after that, followed by several regions north of the mountains, and once he lost the citadels there, the advantage Asterion had managed to gain became even more overwhelming. Mordred attempted to hold on to Godgrave, but it was of no use, or rather, it was too costly. So, instead of fighting another war in Godgrave, he chose to pull back. Everyone expected him to retreat toward the Hollow Mountains, but instead he retreated east. The Glass Hell was conquered by humanity soon after that, as well as the remaining regions north of the Hollow Mountains. Soon enough, only the Chained Isles remained. Cassie surfaced from Mordred's memories with a gasp. Recoiling from him, she fell to the floor and strained to draw air into her lungs. She was disoriented and nauseous, hoarse breaths escaping from between her lips as she suffered a powerful vertigo. Funnily enough, it was the pain that helped her overcome the feeling of being disconnected from the world and rooted her to reality once more. A dreadful, piercing pain was pulsing in her empty socket, and blood was flowing down her pale face. Raising a shaking hand, Cassie wiped the blood away with a handkerchief and pulled her blindfold in place, hiding her wound from the world. "Why are you wearing that?" Mordred's voice betrayed a hint of curiosity. "The blindfold, I mean. From what I can see, it brings little to no benefit." Cassie finally managed to get her breathing under control. She remained silent for a moment, then said in a subdued tone, "No reason." Mordred did not seem convinced. He studied her before asking with interest, "Is it your aspect legacy?" Cassie shook her head. "I have no aspect legacy." He chuckled. "What a coincidence." "Me neither." Mordred rose from where he sat and stretched his shoulders. "Curious things, those aspect legacies. The aspect does not come from the spell, but the legacy does. There is a set way to unseal it, as well, one only the spell knows about. I do wonder sometimes why it has never granted me mine." He chuckled. "Perhaps it's because I was destined to inherit nothing." Cassie remained silent for a moment, then said quietly, This blindfold is just a mundane memory. Its enchantment is of no use, but it cleans and repairs itself, and I like the color. That is already good enough. More importantly, it puts people at ease, so that is why I wear it. Mordred seemed to give her a long look. There are hardly any people here. Letting out a sigh, Cassie slowly rose to her feet. Perhaps not, but over the years, wearing this blindfold became a habit. I like it. Every time I put it on, I feel like I am putting on a helmet and lowering its visor. And then, I am ready for battle. She turned to face him and raised her chin slightly. Are you ready for battle? Mordred laughed. Giving her a pleasant smile, he turned away and headed for the door. You should know it by now, Kasha. I have never not been in a battle. I am a descendant of the goddess of life, after all. Leaving the chamber, he added in a placid tone. And life is war. At the same time as Mordred was looking at the bloodied face of Kasha, who was kneeling on the floor, he was standing on the last link of an immense chain that connected the southern island to the lands beyond. The corpse of Saint Dar of the Maharna had been destroyed some time ago, so now he was wearing a different vessel. Behind him, a battered procession of his other selves was retreating up the great length of the anchor chain, and in front of him, well, he couldn't see the victorious army of the Hunger Domain yet, but it was not too far. He watched the endless columns of awakened march across the wilderness through the reflections. They had already reclaimed all the citadels between the decimated Black Mountains and the Chained Isles, and were now aiming to take Sanctuary of Noctis before the end of the week. In fact, the scouts of the White Feather clan were already observing it from the depths of the sky below. In the west, Godgrave had already been reclaimed by the forces of humanity. The Glass Hell now belonged to the Dreamspawn as well, with a new saint ruling over the desolate streets of Red Hill. Humans even conquered the second citadel, which Mordred had discovered in the depths of the hive. He did not even get the chance to explore it fully. One army was approaching the southern anchor chain, while another was nearing the western. Before too long, they would pass the ruins of the Red Colosseum and disturb the peace of the Altar Island, where the ancient statue of war god still stood. Mordred wondered if losing the altar of war, somewhat of an ancestral holy place for him, meant anything. It probably didn't, but the symbolism was quite poignant. In any case, the two armies would fuse into one great one, the greatest army humanity had ever fielded, as they met on the doorsteps of the Ebony Island. There, he would build a true monument to war. Your little rebellion seems to have failed, hasn't it? The insidious voice flowed into his ears, and as if by magic, a man with golden eyes was suddenly standing in front of the chain's anchor, looking at him calmly. Asterion smiled. I've heard that children eventually go through a phase when they rebel against their parents, but aren't you too old for that, boy? Mortlet, I think I know now what you had been up to for all those years, stuck on the moon. You were polishing your taunting skills, weren't you? If so, congratulations. Your ability to anger others is beyond compare. Even old Jest would be envious. Asterion shrugged. You look tired, Mordred. Mordred chuckled. Tired? Indeed, I am a little tired. How many times have I destroyed that body of yours? And yet, you are still here in front of me. What a tiresome man you are. The Dreamspawn studied him for a few moments. Destroying your endless vessels is also quite a boring affair. But enough is enough. How about you finally see reason, boy? Cease this senseless resistance. You know you can't win, so surrender peacefully. Taking a step forward, he said amicably, the rest of them, humans, are nothing but fodder. But you and I are different. We can rule this world together, face all its dangers together. We can become gods together, and even something greater than that. All you have to do is submit. Mordred could not help but laugh. Submit? Become one of your thralls? You must be mad. The smile slowly drained from his face, replaced by a chilling lack of emotion. You didn't even bother to come up with a believable lie this time, huh? Well, no matter. Listen closely, Dreamspawn. Mordred stared down at Asterion and spoke evenly. I would rather die than submit to you. Oh, but I won't die. Long after your name is lost and forgotten, the name of Mordred of Nowhere will be spoken far and wide, known to everyone. He grinned. Well, that's because it will be me. I will be everyone, and you will be no one. Mordred inhaled deeply. And actually I lied. Destroying you over and over again was not tiresome at all. In truth, I enjoyed it greatly. I hoped that it would never end. But sadly, everything has to have a conclusion, including you. Including me. With that, he took a step back and gave Asterion a mocking bow. So I will see you soon, and I will be the last thing you ever see. With that, he disappeared. Some time after their conversation concluded, the armies of the Hunger Domain walked across the celestial chains and entered the chained isles. During their crossing, the warriors of the White Feather clan rose from the sky below and reclaimed the sanctuary of Noctis. It stood empty, protected by no one. And while that was happening, Cassie descended the steps to the underground level of the Ebony Tower and stood in front of the mirror there, facing the man trapped inside. The hidden flaw of the King of Nothing. The other Mordred, one that was far nicer, safer, and more hollow, glanced at Cassie with a hint of surprise in his mirror-like eyes. Or at least that was what Cassie imagined when she heard his voice. She couldn't place a mark on him, after all, so all that faced her was endless darkness. "Lady Cassia? It is nice to make your acquaintance." Cassie felt like she knew him very well, but she still nodded. "Yes, likewise." She lingered for a moment, and then said in a neutral tone, "I wanted to thank you for keeping Rain company these last however long it has been since we arrived. She doesn't show it, but you must know how awfully lonely, anxious, and afraid she is." The other Mordred must have nodded. "Yes, naturally. Those feelings. I know them well myself." A pale smile appeared on Cassie's lips. "Really? Because I'm not sure that I even know what feelings are anymore." She inhaled deeply, then sighed. "I guess with everything coming to an end, one way or another, I wanted to have a conversation with somebody as well." Mordred remained silent for a long while. "Am I the only option?" Cassie smiled. "Perhaps he was right about you. About people feeling nice in your company, because all they see in you is a reflection of themselves. But what to do? I cannot even see. I wouldn't recognize my own reflection, even if I were standing right in front of it." She raised a hand to wipe a drop of blood from her cheek, then lingered for a moment. "I get it now, I think. Why Ki Song wanted to explain herself to me. There is a kind of solace in being witnessed just before the end." This Mordred, would not know the context. But he seemed to have still understood what she meant, or possibly even what she felt. "And you want to be witnessed by me?" A bittersweet smile twisted Cassie's lips. "No. Far from it. To be honest, I'd rather be forgotten altogether. I do not want your solace. Solace is a sin, anyway." Coming from the darkness, his disembodied voice was hiding a hint of surprise now. "Then what do you want from me, Lady Cassia?" She pretended to look around. "Who knows? Maybe I am simply here to see if there is a way to kill you, somehow, in case I need to get rid of the King of Nothing in a hurry." He chuckled. "I am not actually here, so that would be a challenge. Besides, you must know that he is watching your every move and listening to your every word. Is it really wise to say these things aloud?" Cassie shrugged. "What can he do? He needs me." She remained silent for a moment, then added, "Yes, I know that he is watching me closely, and that nothing escapes him. It would be quite difficult indeed, to do something that goes against his will." The other Mordred asked, "But why would you want to kill him, anyway? I thought that you were allies." Cassie smiled faintly. "We were allies. I needed him as well, you see, to buy time for Changing Star and the Lord of Shadows. That time is running out now, so he is of no use to me anymore. On the contrary, by all accounts, it won't do me any good if he does too well in the final battle. What if he wipes out half of all Awakened?" She shook her head. "At this point, it would be better if he suffered a swift and overwhelming defeat. More people will survive that way for longer, at least. A drawn-out battle is the worst possible outcome. So I might betray him after all." There was a long stretch of silence, and then the other Mordred said, "I don't think that you will, though." Cassie raised an eyebrow. "Why is that?" "I am known to be a traitor." He seemed to consider his words for a while before answering. "I am not sure. My brother is certainly wary of you, but you don't seem like the devious, eerie, treacherous which he described." She smiled. "What do I seem like, then?" The other Mordred seemed to smile back. "You seem like you're trying your best." Hearing that, Cassie couldn't help but laugh. When her laughter died down, she fell silent for a few moments, and then said in a neutral tone, "To be honest, I am a bit devious. And I am a bit eerie. Treacherous, that too, I think. I just hide it better than most, possibly better than anyone." She paused, then added, "But I am really trying my best." Mordred studied her carefully and sighed. "Someone told me recently that there comes a time when one must take a stand. I feel like you are at a point when you are ready to take yours as well. So, I don't think that you'll betray my brother, even if it benefits you. And no matter how much you hate him." Cassie reached forward and touched the mirror, tracing its frame with her fingers. "Hate him? I never hated him." She drew her hand back. "Was appalled by him? Yes. Was terrified by him? Yes. But hating him, it would have been hypocritical of me, considering all the things that I've done. She remained silent for a few moments, and then added, "It's difficult to hate someone whom you understand. And in this whole wide world, I might be the only person who understands Mordred, because I've seen his memories, most of them at least. I experienced all the things he had experienced, and saw every step he took to end up where he is today. What he is today. I witnessed him." Cassie smiled weakly. "I am still appalled by him, but I don't think I will ever be able to hate him, or you. After all, the two of you come from the same source. The most important memories I saw are yours as well." She sighed deeply. "So even if we are meeting for the first time, I can't treat you as a stranger." Mordred did not say anything, and all that met her was the darkness, as well as the feeling of the cold surface of the mirror under her fingers. Cassie raised a hand and pulled down her blindfold, revealing her empty, bleeding eye socket. "That is the real reason why I came to talk to you, Mordred. The other Mordred. The lesser Mordred." He smiled bitterly. "The lesser Mordred. Well, I can't argue with that. But what exactly do you mean, Lady Cassia?" She lingered with the answer. In the end, she shrugged. "I lost the ability to see the future, but I can still predict it, even if I use deduction instead of precognition now. So, call it a contingency of sorts." He seemed to have frowned. "I still don't understand what you are talking about." Cassie raised an eyebrow. "Don't you? The two of you used to be the same person, but your paths have diverged at some point. Since then, you were both locked in your own cell of solitude, each suffering his own banishment. Neither of you is whole, and while he detests you, you long for him, don't you? Just like you longed for your family, whose care and affection you had been denied." Mordred laughed bitterly. "Oh, but he longs for me as well. He longs to destroy and absorb me, like he did the rest. It's just that he can't, because I carry his death. Quite a pair, aren't we?" Cassie shook her head. "It doesn't matter what he wants. I've spent so many days and suffered so much doing what he wanted. What he needed from me. What do you want?" Mordred remained silent, so she spoke instead. "I will tell you what I want. I want to remember where Sunny and Nephice are, so that I know when they will come back. I want them back so badly. But I can't because I erased my own memories of knowing. That is a power of mine. To see, to know, to remember. Or to forget." She drew in a slow breath. "And now I have to confront the possibility that they won't come back in time. Which means that I cannot rely on them to defeat the Dreamspawn. Which means that I must defeat him myself. But he is so vast, and I am so small. When he pressed me down and took my eye, I couldn't even move. All my weapons are gone or broken, and all I am left with is a tangled thread." Closing her one remaining eye, Cassie took a deep breath. "How is Ariadne supposed to defeat the Minotaur without Theseus?" Cassie laughed quietly. "Look, the Dreamspawn might have failed to infect me with the plague, but he certainly infected me with that damn metaphor. I just can't seem to get rid of it." She fell silent, and then forced out a smile. "In any case, that is the reason why I am hesitating to betray your other self. It makes sense to ensure his rapid defeat to postpone the slaughter, so that Sunny and Nephice could return and save everyone. But if I can't hide in their shadow anymore, then this is it, this is the end. There is no tomorrow, and no hope if the King of Nothing is defeated." She laughed again. "To tell you the truth, despite the fact that Mordred is watching my every step and listening to my every word, I still managed to fool him and build a trap for him, right under his nose. It was not that hard, actually. He is not as good at runic sorcery as I am. So even if he saw me create the array and read every rune, what was the point? He only understood enough of its general form to sate his suspicion. He didn't see, had no capacity to see, the sharp knife I hid in the nuance, to drive it into his back at the right second and destroy him." The other Mordred stared at her from the mirror. After a long stretch of silence, he said in a subdued tone, "He was expecting you to manipulate his memories. He was so focused on creating countermeasures against your aspect that he missed the real threat." Cassie shrugged. "Naturally he did. That is the secret of magic, after all. Attention, expectation, misdirection. The pledge, the turn, the prestige. What people see, what people cannot see. Like me. I am unseeing, and therefore remain unseen. And so, they never see me coming." She smiled faintly. "Your other self was the only one who saw me for what I was, and treated me with due diligence. But even he grew complacent after attaining supremacy. It is in the nature of the Supremes to be overconfident and arrogant, I think. So when he saw me covered in blood and trembling, a mere saint, he let his guard down. Like I knew he would." She shrugged. Like they all do. The other Mordred sighed, then said quietly, "But you are saying these things aloud knowing that he is listening, which means that you have changed your mind, in the end." Cassie let out a bitter laugh. "Have I? Yes, I guess I have, just now." She raised her head and inhaled deeply. "I am tired. I am at the end of my wits. I don't even recognize myself anymore. And not only because my own memories are missing. All this deviousness, all these schemes, all these calculations, it is not in my nature. I think I heard your other self mention once that he simply reflected the world back on itself, and was therefore shaped by the world into becoming an exceptional monster. But he had been exceptional to begin with. They all were. Children of legendary warriors, heirs of the gods, born under fateful omens, raised and nurtured by the crushing pressure of unimaginable adversity. She smiled wistfully. But I was just a normal girl. I had a normal childhood and normal parents. There wasn't anything exceptional about me, until I was faced with exceptional challenges, and was left with no choice but to rise to the occasion. So that was what I did. Right or wrong, I made one small choice after another, each twisting my form a little more, until I couldn't recognize it anymore. So who was really shaped by this cursed world into what they are today, between Mordred and me? Cassie sighed and faced the mirror once more. I used to believe that Sunny and Nephice would return and save the day. But if I am honest with myself, it's all because of me. I set all of this in motion. I might have forgotten where they went, but I know that they left because of a message my past self had sent into the future. She must have had a plan. She must have had a vision. Cassie's expression hardened, turning colder and darker. So now, I choose to believe in myself. I choose to have faith in myself. I won't hope for their return anymore, so I will not betray your other self. Because he is all I have, just like I am all he has. A couple of monsters, forced to face a far more frightening abomination. She remained silent for a long while, and then reached toward the mirror. Tracing its cold surface with her fingers, Cassie raised her other hand and touched the blood-stained skin around her missing eye. "But we at least have each other. While you have nothing, are you envious of me? Because he needs me, while all you ever wanted was to be needed." The other Mordred seemed to smile. "I don't think I am capable of feeling envy, to be honest. I can pretend to feel it, though, if you want." Cassie sighed. "He put you in the great mirror and kept you imprisoned there for so long. And still you long to be needed by him, appreciated by him, valued by him. Because you think you love him. But how can you love him? You don't even know him." The other Mordred remained silent. She did, as well, and then said quietly, "But you want to, don't you? To get to know him. To grow closer." Finally he laughed. "So what is this? The pledge, the turn, or the prestige? Am I failing to see you as well, Lady Cassia?" She shrugged. "The greatest ruse is the one you cannot resist, even if you see it coming. But no, I am not here to deceive, manipulate, or use you. I simply want to give you what you want, for no other reason than that I can. Now that our end might be drawing close, I wanted to do something good for once, without thinking about how it would benefit me." The other Mordred seemed to shake his head. "Sounds exactly like something that a person planning to deceive, manipulate, and use me would say. Still, what is it, exactly, that you want to do?" Cassie smiled weakly. "I already said it, didn't I? My power is to see, to know, and to remember. Or to forget. And ever since coming to the Ebony Tower, I've gotten to know, and I remembered your other self. Everything there was to learn about the years when the two of you were one being, and most of what there was to learn about the years you were apart. It was like I was there with him, up to the point when he attained supremacy, at least. After that, containing his memories becomes quite hard." The other Mordred, one who had been separated from the only remaining part of himself, hesitated, then asked in a confused tone, "Why are you telling me this? Are you taunting me, Lady Cassia?" She shook her head. "No. Don't you understand? My power is to see, to know, and to remember, yes. But it is also to help the rest see, know, and remember. I am Song of the Fallen, after all. My fate is to sing about those I witnessed, not to bear the memory of them in silence. In other words, just like I took the memories of a lifetime spent alone from his mind, I can share them with you. I can help you experience all the things that he experienced so that you come to know him." The other Mordred remained silent for a long while. Cassie waited for his response in the darkness, faced with only the coldness of the mirror under the fingers of her left hand and the hot, feverish slickness of her skin under the fingers of her right hand. Eventually he whispered, "Why would you do that for me?" She inhaled deeply. It's because I cannot see the future anymore, but I can still predict it. And I predict that you might need these memories one day. He lingered for a few seconds, then said quietly, "No, that is not true. You're lying." He paused for a moment. "Instead, you think that you might need me to have these memories one day. Isn't that right, Lady Kasha?" She smiled. "Is there a difference?" He laughed bitterly. "I guess not. It's peculiar." There was a long stretch of silence, but eventually he said, "I feel like I will regret taking you up on your offer. But at the same time, I know that I will regret it forever if I refuse it. In the end, all I will be left with is regret." Cassie lowered her head. "Still, it's better to regret something that you did than something that you could have done, but didn't. Believe me, I know that kind of torment well." The part of Mordred imprisoned in the mirror sighed heavily and fell silent. After a while he asked, "So what do I do?" Cassie leaned closer to the mirror until her face was almost pressed against it. "It's easy." She took a deep breath. "Just look me in the eye." Cassie left the part of Mordred trapped inside the mirror in a pitiful state, crumbled on the floor and crying. She would have liked to share parting words, but sadly, he was in no condition to hold a conversation. It was no surprise. After all, the King of Nothing could only endure the weight of his memories because he knew no regret, and therefore no remorse, no compassion. His other self, however, empty as he was, knew compassion all too well. To him, the memories of all the gruesome things Mordred had perpetrated, as well as all the ghastly things Mordred had endured, were like poison. Experiencing them as memories was no different from torture. One he had chosen for himself, but torture nonetheless. So Cassie simply left. She wasn't feeling all too well either. The next day, she tied a piece of fabric around Rain's face, covering her eyes, and helped her push Smile of Heaven's wheelchair to the highest floor of the ebony tower, past the hall where the walls were carved with myriad runes. "What is so dangerous about those runes, anyway?" Rain's voice was subdued. Cassie lingered with the answer. "There are things in this world that will destroy you simply by knowing them, or even by being too close to those places where the knowledge of them was transcribed. There is also knowledge that was forbidden by the will of the gods. Actually, the runic hall of the Ebony Tower is not too dangerous, at least not to an ascended like you. But," she hesitated, "most awakened are protected from understanding the forbidden runes, and therefore gaining knowledge that will destroy them by the spell. But you are not a carrier of the spell, so nothing is protecting you. More than that, you are exceptionally sensitive to the names and, by extension, to the runes. Places like this are dangerous to you, Rain, at least until you grow stronger." Smile of Heaven remained still and expressionless as her wheelchair floated up the stairs, held up in the air by the power of Rain's epithets. Finally leaving the eerie level behind, they arrived at the highest floor, where the portal archway rested in the darkness. Rain removed the piece of fabric from her eyes and sighed. "So what is the plan? If things go south, we open the portal and run away again." Cassie remained silent for a while, then slowly shook her head. "No, there's nowhere left to run. You won't be able to open the portal again anyway." Turning slightly, she pointed to the runic circle surrounding the archway. "See there? A portion of the enchantment is destroyed. I destroyed it. You should recognize the runes I crossed out. Space, desire, web, connection. I taught you these runes already." Rain did not answer immediately. "Why did you destroy the runes?" Cassie pushed the wheelchair away from the entrance to the stairwell and turned to face her. "Because now that the Ivory Island is back among the Chained Isles, anyone can use it to gain entrance here. I had to make sure that we won't be attacked from inside the Ebony Tower, so I chose to destroy the runes that you can restore one day, just in case I am not here to help you." She seemed at ease, and her voice was as calm as ever. Rain simply stared at her for a long while, trying to keep her own emotions under control. Eventually she asked, "What am I supposed to do here, then?" "Just wait and listen, wondering what is happening outside." Cassie offered her a reassuring smile. "This is the safest place in the tower. Here, nothing will happen to you during the battle. If the battle drags for too long, there is food, blankets, everything you need to spend a few days in relative comfort." Rain raised her chin a little. "What about after the battle? What happens if I stay safe and sound while everyone else dies?" Cassie seemed to study her for a moment. "Well, I don't think anything terrible will happen. The Dreamspawn needs as many people as possible to stay alive and well, especially powerful awakened like you. So, you will probably have to spend a few more months under his mind hex. Then Sunny will come back and find a way to break it." Rain shook her head. "You just called me a powerful awakened. So, you should let me stay with you and help. She gritted her teeth. You said that you needed my help, that you needed me to be your eyes. Who's going to be your eyes if I'm here? Cassie smiled gently. Rain, it will be hard even for me to be of any use in this battle. A master like you won't be able to change anything. Plus, you're already helping. Haven't you given me the epithets? I can feel them. I am much stronger because of you. Her gentle words were in sharp contrast with her pale face and the blood seeping through her blindfold. Rain bit her lip, then turned away and faced the obsidian wall. After a while, she spoke again, her voice tone. I've been trying out my ascended ability, you know. I've been trying to talk to the ebony tower. Cassie tilted her head a little. Oh, did it say anything? Rain hesitated for a few moments, then shrugged. It is not really a conversation, but I can feel something, an impression, like hearing an echo of the thoughts that belonged to a sleeping giant. She turned slightly and said, This tower was flawlessly white once, you know, just like its sister high in the sky. But after myriad years of burning, it turned black, like the darkness around it. Cassie smiled. It must be glad to be here in the sky above, then, bathed in the light and caressed by the winds. Rain turned to the wall once again and shook her head slowly. After a while, she said, It misses the fire. Cassie tilted her head. Eventually, she walked up to Rain and gripped her shoulder softly. Then, she turned away and left. Now alone, Cassie slowly descended the steps of an ancient black tower. With each step, a dull pain radiated from beneath her bloodied blindfold. All around her, Mordred's vessels were preparing to face the final siege of the war, even if they had little chance of winning it. She passed the hall where the forbidden runes were inscribed on the walls, the shrine of the goddess of black skies, the workshop of the demon of destiny, the great brazier where the flame that had once destroyed the kingdom of hope still burned, and the living quarters on the ground floor as well. Walking out of the ebony tower, Cassie faced the familiar expanse of the chained island. Out there, separated from the flying island by a vast chasm and the great length of 7 celestial chains, these ones forged by humans, not by the mythical beings of the distant past, the forces of humanity were arrayed against her and Mordred. The great army of the Hunger Domain was positioned on the islands around the ebony tower, surrounding it from all sides. Hundreds of thousands of awakened, thousands of masters, more than 100 saints. There were vast swarms of echoes and myriad enthralled nightmare creatures as well. Seishin and her sisters were among them. So were Nightwalker and the Saints of Night, Skytide and Roan, even her own fire keepers. And their master, of course, their new master, that was Asterion. All of them were ready to attack the ebony tower. Quite a sight, isn't it? She turned her head slightly, acknowledging the man who had spoken to her, the wicked monster with eyes that reflected the world back on itself. Mordred of Nowhere, the king of nothing. Her last and only ally. Cassie lingered for a moment, then said evenly, I wouldn't know. Mordred laughed. Once the echoes of his laughter were swallowed by the wind, he added in a mocking tone, It all could have been avoided if you had let me loose, you know. Ah, but alas, you and your senseless morality. If the rulers of the longing domain had been willing to let him cull humanity before Asterion took it, they would not have been driven into a corner. The Dreamspawn would not have become unstoppable. Mordred paused briefly, looking at the enthralled army that had belonged to the obliterated longing domain once, and asked, So, what does defeat taste like? Cassie lingered for a long time. When she finally spoke, her dark voice was full of defiance. I am not defeated yet,